Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and today we're going to be discussing games as a service, the live service game model, and hear how at the end of 2018 we're finally starting to see these companies have to wake up and realize the fact that they cannot keep pumping out these games over and over again, making them worse products over and over again, and expecting the well to never run dry. Now, this year alone has seen some major backlash towards these major publishers such as EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and whatnot. All these companies are seeing some major problems with their stock prices, especially here in the second half of the year, with companies like EA and Activision suffering huge downturns in their stock prices year over year, and the fact that even the financial people, the people who don't care about games at all, but the financial analysts, the market analysts, they have also finally caught on to the reason why these games are beginning to fail and why these companies, as a result, are starting to hemorrhage money and investors are pulling out left and right. Now, of course, there's the argument going around that, hey, the entire market is going down right now. The entire stock market is sort of turning into a bear market right now and losing points off its value all the time. And that is true. However, the rate of the downturn with the general stock market is not nearly as bad as what we're seeing from these major AAA gaming publishers. They are falling off the map. Over 50% of their value in some cases has fallen off over the last year, and investors are panicking, and there's more than enough reason to do so because, well, let's just get into a couple of these reasons right now. Now, first and foremost, it has not been a failure in 2018 for every company, and there's one game in particular which I'm sure you're going to know what I'm about to say. It's Fortnite. Fortnite has been a huge success, and just when it looked like the game was going to start having a bit of a downturn, just last month in November, they announced that they had their highest concurrent player count of 8.3 million. So that game still is not really going anywhere, and they've also announced that they've topped the 200 million player mark. So there's still a ton of people playing Fortnite, whether you like that or not. I know a lot of people just hate Fortnite. That's fine. I'm not getting into the quality of the game right now. I'm just saying that on the whole, that is really the only games as a service title that you can point to this year and say, hey, that game was a success. All the rest of these games have been market failures in the eyes of the publishers and, in many cases, in the eyes of the public. And it doesn't seem to be getting better, it just seems to be getting substantially worse. And as we head into 2019, we see the start of the new year is going to have many new games trying to jump into the market with this games as a service model, and I'm telling you now, it's going to be ugly once again. Because at this point, you have the players who've been aware of the problems for years. And we've been trying to tell these companies with our feedback, us terrible, entitled gamers trying to give feedback to these companies, trying to tell them what we actually want to purchase, and they don't seem to give a rip what we care. They just keep trying to force these titles down our throat. But we've known for years that this was headed for trouble. And now the financial analysts are aware that it's heading for trouble because those guys pick up on this stuff relatively quick. The only people who still can't seem to piece together why they're failing is the people who are actually publishing and developing these games. These companies seem to have no concept still that they can't get away with this crap. They keep trying to do it over and over again. They keep trying to calm us down with platitudes like, we're going to do better. Shut up. No, you're not. You're not doing better. You're in fact doing it worse every single year. And what do we have here? Well, now we have a whole conflation of things happening here at the end of the year, and none of it is good news for these big publishers. You have Activision and Blizzard with the news that we just had this week about how Activision is pressuring Blizzard to not necessarily cut staff, but Blizzard is taking that to cut staff because Activision has told them they have to cut monthly costs as well as start producing games at a quicker pace, which of course does not benefit us as consumers because we're going to get games that don't have as many people working on them coming out faster, which means they're going to be even less feature complete than what we already have. Now, Blizzard has taken their cost-cutting method, and the first thing they've done is they've offered buyouts to people. Now, apparently, this is something that they've actually been doing for a few years, but they've ramped it up. Before, if you had been with a company for a number of years, you could accept a buyout and you could go on your merry way with some severance package from them. Now, they've lowered the amount of time you have to be at the company in order to accept that buyout and leave, and we got reports this week that over 100 employees have decided to take that option and leave Blizzard because they're being paid to do so. And now this is all coming from Activision's mandate that they have to cut costs. And that isn't the only thing. We also got news that Heroes of the Storm is basically getting cut out of the esports scene in another cost-cutting move. Now, that's not a game that I personally have played. I actually don't really even know much about it at all. I just know that it's a Blizzard game with a bunch of different heroes from their other titles. Now, the fact that these big companies are panicking, really, because their stock prices are down, well, that is a good thing, because they're going to have to finally wake up and understand that the marketplace is fully saturated right now. And it's not just a question of money and the total amount of games out there. It's the hours. It's the players' hours. There's not enough hours in our playtime for the average player to support all of these titles that these companies keep pumping out. It was only a matter of time. We've been saying it for years. We've been trying to tell these companies, hey, some of these games are fine, but when you're all doing it, and when you have companies like Ubisoft who's saying, hey, we're even going to move away from single-player games, we want to only start pushing games as a service, live service type games, then that's only going to compound the problem exponentially. And then you also throw in companies like EA, where they need to get multiplayer and games as a service jammed into most of their games now. They're even turning some of their most popular... We see what they're doing with BioWare by having BioWare make a multiplayer game, which a lot of people are calling a Destiny clone. BioWare is trying to deny it. The fanboys are trying to deny it. But it is, at the end of the day, their version of Destiny. That's what they're doing. It's EA's version of Activision's game. Just like Battlefield is their version of Call of Duty, which are two more games that also... Call of Duty sold very well this year, but the numbers were down from the year before. Battlefield 5 sold terribly, and that has more to do with the marketing than anything, but I would imagine that the sales would still be down from Battlefield 1. That wouldn't be a surprise at all, even if they hadn't stepped on their own 2 feet and shot themselves repeatedly as they were doing so while they were trying to market that game. That would not surprise me at all, because what did we see this year? We saw all of these games take a step back. We saw Activision complaining about Destiny 2 and the Forsaken DLC not re-engaging players enough. They didn't bring back the core player base. They were upset about that. They were upset that Call of Duty didn't sell. It was down year over year based compared to World War II. And then, once again, you had the Battlefield 5 thing. You had EA last year with the bomb of Star Wars Battlefront 2, where they just, once again, they screwed themselves over through their own stupidity and had people sour on the game. And then you had, this year we got Red Dead Redemption 2, which was also one of the biggest games of the year. But if you go on Twitch right now, you'll see that it's already slipped well below Grand Theft Auto 5 as far as most streamed games. Now, I understand that because it's not on PC, that's going to depress the numbers a little bit. But still, the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2 just had their online mode come out last month and it's already out of the top 25 streamed games, it's not a good sign. That is a game that should still be going strong right now, and yet, like I said, it's already dipped below a game that came out 5 years ago. This isn't good. Take-Two can't be happy with that. You know they wanted to monetize that game for years to come, and we've seen a lot of videos. I made one myself, and there's been a lot of other videos made about the poor economy in the game. And even though they've increased it a much, all that negative publicity has already sort of killed off a lot of the player base. When I look at my friends list, when the online mode first came out for Red Dead, this is just an anecdote, but I had about anywhere from 15 to 20 people at any given moment playing Red Dead 2, most of them online. Now, when I turn it on, I almost have no one playing the game because people have already started to finish the story, and I only have about anywhere between 2 and 4 people still playing the online mode. Now, that's just me and my group of friends that I have on my friends list, but I'm sure if you look on your own friends list, you will see a similar trend happening. People are walking away from the game, just like they're walking away from all these games as a service games, because we don't have the time. We only have enough time to play a few games a year, especially if they're going to be jamming these games as a service titles down our throat. That's why actually for the last month or so, I've really been enjoying getting into some of my back catalog and playing a few games that aren't necessarily games as a service titles at all. I've been playing some single player games. I've been going through my back catalog. I even picked up some games on my Switch so I don't have to play and deal with that online grind, because quite frankly, there's too many games of that sort in the market right now. And I just can't keep up, and I don't really want to keep up anymore because I feel like I've done it. Every time you start a new game, it's like you're just grind. It's like, okay, here we go. Strap in for another 250, 300 hours just to try to get to the point where you'll have the top end gear. And of course, we see what happens when a company like Bethesda tries to get in on this same games as a service model. We saw what happened with Fallout 76. It was a disaster. Now that was a disaster on many different scales. Pretty much every scale, really, when you think about it, from marketing to programming to game design to the technical side of things. I mean, pretty much everything about the game was a bust to begin with. However, here at the end of 2018, if you're putting out a games as a service title and it is not really a top end game when it launches, it's going to fail. Now, sure, these games will still have their cult followings. People are still playing Fallout 76. People do still play a lot of these early access games that aren't really polished from these smaller developers. You know, maybe a game like Ark or Conan. People still will play those, but they're not having the mass appeal that they would have had years ago because there's too many games. And you keep seeing more Battle Royale games come out, like H1Z1. That came out on console, and PUBG is now out on all these consoles. And once again, Fortnite has saturated the market, and you have a ton of people playing that game. And that game has also captured all of the younger players. So you're not going to have younger players getting into these other game types because they're going to be stuck playing Fortnite. Probably, I would imagine at this point, you have to expect Fortnite to go strong for at least another year because it's not showing many signs of slowing down if just last month they had their highest concurrent player base. And that is why when a game like 76 comes out and it just is bad on all fronts to start with, it's going to die a quick and painful death because, once again, we don't have the hours in the day. We don't have the money to keep funding every single one of these projects. And at the end of the day, a lot of us don't want to play. A lot of us don't even want to play multiplayer games. Now, that doesn't really affect me. I do like multiplayer games, but I know a lot of people, especially a lot of my subscribers, don't like multiplayer games to begin with. So anytime you say always online, that's an instant no buy for a good amount of people. A good amount of people. And that number is getting bigger every day because more and more people jump into these games as a service models, and they might have fun for a while. I know a lot of people who jumped into Fallout 76 were people who traditionally only play single-player games, and they don't really play multiplayer games. And so for a while, there was a bit of novelty there, like, oh, there's other people running around with me. But once you've played 3, 4, 5, 6 of these titles for a couple hundred hours, you get the idea. It's not a new concept. We've been playing it like this for years. And so once players get burned enough times, once they've had their wallets drained enough times, once they've sunk hundreds of hours into a game only not to be rewarded at all for their playtime, they're going to stop buying these games. And that's what we're starting to see. The numbers are dropping. The numbers are finally dropping. These publishers are finally feeling the squeeze. And they can blame it on whatever else they want. They can blame it on Fortnite. They can blame it on us terrible entitled players. But at the end of the day, it's their own fault for pushing so hard. We've been telling them for years this was coming. They were going to oversaturate the market. They were going to push too hard with microtransactions and DLC packs and expansion packs and all this crap to the point where now, if you want to play a full game, it's going to cost you $90 to $120 at base if you want to get the full experience. Some of them are more than that. And they're always going to be trying to buy some cosmetics, buy this booster pack, buy some more cosmetics. You want a skin for that gun? How about a paint job for that? Well, don't you want a new character avatar? How about a new banner for your name tag? Wouldn't that be awesome? You don't want a new outline border? You can pay for that too. You can pay for all this stuff. You want to buy a new mount? Go for it. Pay us. Pay us. Oh, you want an upgrade for that? Pay us. You can't just earn anything through games anymore. They just want you to keep buying and buying and buying. And customers have had enough. And finally, the scales have tipped the other way. And these stock prices are plummeting. Now, these companies think that they're going to be able to salvage it. I know I read some financial analysis this week saying that they think that EA thinks that they can still pull things off because they have Anthem coming out in the fourth fiscal quarter for next year in February. They have that up their sleeve, and they think that that's going to salvage the entire year for them. And it might. It will probably sell pretty well because I know just the average casual gamer that has a lot of buzz going around. Anthem does have some buzz, so I'm sure the game will sell pretty well. But if it's just another dead, lifeless experience, it's going to die on the vine, just like all these other titles. Now, it might be successful, it might sell well, but the long-term health of it is not going to be good if the game comes out and it's a bomb at launch, if it doesn't run, if people can't connect, if it's buggy. Now, it looks like it might actually be shaping up to be an okay game, and it's a game that probably 4 years ago I probably would have been excited to play. But at this point, all I have is skepticism for a game like that because I've been burned so many times by these games as service titles, and I am not alone. There are millions and millions of people who are totally turned off to this gaming model, and it's the publishers and the developers' own fault. Now, some people are saying that this is the crash happening in front of us, the one that we've been predicting for years is going to happen, the gaming crash. Now, I have not really bought into the full gaming industry crash like we saw in the early 80s for a couple of reasons. However, I will say it does look, we will probably see at least some major developers shut down in the next year or two. If not, one of these major publishing companies might get bought out by someone else. Maybe Microsoft steps in and buys one of these big companies. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Google steps in. Google wants to push their gaming platform. Maybe Google steps in and does something like that. One of these, maybe, a third party that people aren't really thinking about right now might step in and do something about the failings of these companies. That could happen. We could see some buyouts of major companies. That would not surprise me at all right now. Is the industry going to crash? Yeah, I don't think in the way that some people think it will, because there are just too many players involved right now. There's way more people playing games now than were playing in the early 80s, and people that started playing games in the early 80s are now adults. Back in 1983, when the industry crashed before, there was not this sort of home saturation with consoles and PC gamers and everything else. Gaming was much more of a niche market. Even though there still was money to be made there was not nearly the same amount of people involved, not nearly the same amount of money involved. And so I think that financially there's enough gamers and enough money going right now in the marketplace to keep it sustained, but I do think that there's going to be some major restructuring and some major shutdowns happen from some really big companies in the next couple of years. That would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form, but we'll just have to wait and see how this all shakes out. Anyway, I just want to put this video out because this is sort of a hot topic going on right now, and there's been a lot of stuff happen towards the second half of this year and headed into next year that I think is a lot of red flags for the industry and for these publishers. They need to wake up and realize what's going on now, but I don't think they're going to. And even some of the financial analysts, I think they might be catching on now, but I don't think that they have it right. They might figure it out. I hope they figure it out. But at the end of the day, at least one of these major publishers is going to fall, I predict. I don't see all of these major publishing companies surviving the next couple of years because, like I said, market saturation. We're already oversaturated with these types of games, and these companies can't help themselves. They have to push them out because they have to drive more profits, because their investors want to see growth year over year. And if they don't see growth, they're going to start pulling their money out, and that's what's happening now. But anyway, that's it for me today. I know I haven't put out a video in the last couple days because I've actually had a bit of a head cold. You can probably still hear it in my voice now. I've been really congested, so I couldn't make any videos the last couple days. It would have sounded horrendous, so today's the first day that I thought I could actually get something out. So I apologize for that. But anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I threw a lot of stuff out here in this video, so there's a lot to talk about. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm Coach Toolshed. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to stay in tune headed forward, and as always, keep it turned to 11.